think back now, and look at the shape. For the coronals, ask yourselves, what's the shape of the ventricle? What's on the midline? And if they're optic fibers, where are the optic fibers? Those are your cues. Always start out with, what's the shape of the ventricle? Right? And so you kind of compare it this way. Here's that butterfly shape of the ventricle. That's lateral ventricle. That's going to be rostral. All right. Always refer back to your sagittal. You know from your sagittal, all right, that if you're in lateral ventricle, only lateral ventricle, you're going to be looking at basal ganglia. You're going to be looking there. So if you see that butterfly shape, then you're on the hunt for the different basal ganglia nuclei. So caudate, putamen, internal capsule, external capsule, extreme capsule, and claustrum, right? And globus pallidus if it's a good cut. So notice the difference in shape from this to this. So this is your third ventricle, right? When you see a 4-dot pattern, right, you should see an interrupted third ventricle. When you see an interrupted third ventricle, the area immediately around the ventral portion of that third ventricle is going to be the periventricular nuclei. Peri, yeah, not para. Here are the optic fibers. Identify this nucleus. Amygdala. So you see a 4-dot pattern, and the optic fibers are no longer at the chiasm. They're starting to move up, or appear to be moving up. That's when you look for amygdala with that teardrop shape. But it's this shape of the ventricle. So you have this, God bless, you have this fornix. Below it is the third ventricle. Above it is the lateral ventricle. Right? Question?
Can you possibly zoom in on the pictures?
Oh. Sure. You start to lose seeing the collective, and it starts to pixelate. So I'm doing this just to show you the difference in ventricular shape. We'll go over these better. So you have this interrupted third ventricle. You have this 4-dot pattern. Remember, you may see smears on the top, and that's that mammillothalamic. It has that really steep turn. This is the characteristic shape of the amygdala. This is kind of munched. So fornix, third ventricle, lateral ventricle. Identify this gyrus. Cingulate gyrus. If you see a corpus callosum sitting on top of it, it's going to be the cingulate gyrus. You can count on it. Okay. As you move caudally, notice that this is starting to close up and this is moving up. That tells you that you're moving caudally. All right, so you still have fornix here, hippocampus there. So there's hippocampus, and here this is an uneven cut. So there's the end of amygdala, beginning of hippocampus on this side. Those optic fibers are starting to move up, and you're starting to see the shape, the characteristic shape of the lateral geniculum. Here is caudate. Remember from that cartoon on the human basal ganglia, that caudate moves up like this. That tail stays on for a long time. And so here's the tail of the caudate. And so as you move even caudally, notice remember how that third ventricle kind of moves up into the aqueduct? So this is just about getting to the aqueduct. That means that you're at the very end of the thalamus. That means identify these structures. Habenula. That's what the habenula looks like. And the telltale fibers coming off of it. All right. So identify this structure. Identify this structure. Identify these fibers. Identify the space inside the brain the pin is going through. Lateral ventricle. That's the end of the lateral. We're coming to the end of the lateral ventricle at the hippocampus. Now you can see this lateral geniculate better. That's the club shape of that lateral geniculate, kind of a boomerang shape. Notice that we've got the whole hippocampus on this side, so it's not just seeing the top and the bottom. Now you're getting to the whole portion. And the characteristic shape of a mesencephalic cut. That's what the aqueduct looks like. So identify the space inside the brain the pin is going through and the nucleus immediately surrounding it. Central gray aqueduct of Sylvius, or cerebral aqueduct. Or you could be painfully descriptive and just about the periaqueduct of Gray. Same thing. Identify this structure. Pineal body, because we know it's sitting on top of the collecula. Remember that from that midline sagittal. Okay. So when I say look for the shape of the ventricle, this is what I mean. It'll cue you as to where you are rostral decado.
So you'll take cerebral aqueduct rather than para. Yeah.
Central gray as opposed to periaqueductal gray. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Cerebral aqueduct or aqueduct of Sylvius. Either one of those two for that aqueduct. And even though spelling doesn't count, we don't mark for penmanship, but we have to read it. Okay? So make sure that a normal person without a magnifying glass can actually read your answers. I'm going to show you. Where'd it go?